my name's Neilson. I am a realtor here in Manhattan, Kansas, but I also do tours for K-State. I worked for the university up until October when I switched over to real estate, and Chamber of Commerce has me whenever they have people who can't be around. They ask me if I will actually come in and step in and do tours. So I'm from this area originally. I'm from by Randolph. It's where I grew up. Went to Blue Valley High School up that way, and then I did my undergrad and 2 master's degrees here at K-State before traveling all over the place, and came back about 7 years ago. So I love Manhattan history, the history of this area, so that's kind of where the Chamber reached out to me and just let me know if I wanted to start doing tours. They would love to start having me. So you all are my official first group tour, so this should be an entertaining ride for all of us. The auditorium for the building.
Yeah,
was it for the building or for the town?
The right side was auditorium.
That was the gymnasium for the school at that time?
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, now this has actually been transferred over to a Head Start. As you can see, the school, Manhattan did come through and put on naming plates on the fronts of these buildings for the older schoolhouses.
Packed up here. Oh my goodness, there's so many kids.
Yeah. Spent 7 years there.
7 years?
Yeah. Kindergarten through 6.
Oh wow.
Playground and style parking lot.
On a lot of these schools, they actually were doing, there was consideration on whether or not some of the schools would be sold to have other operations happen inside of them, but about that same time is when the Big Red 1 was announced to be coming back to the area, which is what actually helped a lot of our housing situation around here, and is what caused not only the schools to continue to be in operation, but also to expand. So yeah, TR down here, Theodore Roosevelt, is now called TR by most of the people in the area, for the kids especially. And they did an addition on the side of it, actually a new gymnasium, and they turned the old gymnasium into a library. So
and they knocked down Cream Cup and put up a
This is Houston Street.
hotel.
that's true. If you like the Cream Cup as much as I did,
it's a hotel.
it is now a hotel, which is really sad.
Yes, Cream Cup was it.
But if you are hankering for a Cream Cup burger like I do sometimes, Wamigo does still have that. What's fun for me on this, you can see we have the outdoor wildlife and learning site here now. But apart from the glass side here, this should have a lot of old resemblance to what you would remember.
Because that used to be.
Unless you would get your wife to drive the truck and you drive the lawnmower.
So $7 probably, yes, no?
Possibly. Does anybody in here need to go see the $7 Catholic school while we're down this direction? Anybody go to that?
So here's the gym now.
Maybe too late.
And then the very back of the gym, they have portables, and that's a preschool, because I bring preschool kids over there.
Yeah, so here on the back side, they do have a preschool. They have closed off the park from being driven through, and they've actually moved a lot of the stuff that used to happen there, like the Fall Festival and some of those other things have actually moved. And even the Purple Power Play on Points, which I can't remember when they started that, but is actually transferred over to the city park area as they've been. there is a school. When you look through the glass here, when we pass through, if you look back, there is a secondary school in the back called Lincoln, which was here before either of these schools existed. If you look straight back through the glass,
see it? Straight through.
That was actually the entry door to Lincoln. You'll probably notice a lot of the buildings down here on points really haven't changed all that much. So like I said, if you look out, you'll see the addition of the children's learning section here on the eastern side of the library. But luckily, a lot of the restoration's been happening down here on points. We're going to turn and go up towards Woodrow Wilson and then over to Bluemont. But a lot of the restoration and the changes that have happened down here on points, they actually have been keeping the historical buildings and just doing internal renovations on them.
They just put that part of that church right through the alley, so you can't go down the alley anymore.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
My daughter went
And the
there.
Methodist church here has expanded also. Yeah, you can't actually go down the alley anymore. They've attached the buildings through there. Yep, it's going to be a new clinic over on this side of town for Via Christi.
When I moved here, it was Safeway.
So it was Safeway, and then it became a Food for Less.
Yeah.
So we're getting ready to approach Bluemont here, and this was one of the schools that was actually closed down for 2 to 3 years. And this was one of the ones they were discussing on if there was a possibility of selling it once the Big Red one had left. But when it did return to Fort Riley was when it was opened back up. And really, starting at that point is when Manhattan really started its growth, coming back, and hasn't really stopped building or developing since. And so the return of Big Red 1 and of that partnership with Fort Riley that's built up over time. In 7 years, this town has changed drastically. So I can't even imagine, longer than that. It just seems crazy to me to think about how this has shifted. So as we head back down towards points, there is going to be, a lot of the addition that's down here is going to be new. My dad used to like to point out in the mall, when we had a Sears in the mall, that his house when he was in college, he'd go stand in the middle of the craftsman tool section and say, my shower was right here. So what you'll notice is on the Manhattan Library, there's actually been a very large addition done to the western side of the Manhattan, or eastern side of the library. It's actually added a children's library section to it. And Manhattan's library has actually become a really nice central station. And really, since we got rid of all the video rental stores, it's become actually a great place to rent movies as well. There are going to be some pillars as far as some of the communities considered, but I also like to point out the Chamber of Commerce directly here to the right. It is open Monday through Friday, so when you do come back by here, the Chamber of Commerce has a lot of information about Manhattan and the area. But as you'll notice, the main thoroughfare here of Points Avenue, while the shops and a lot of it has changed, some of them did remain the same. And a lot of it is still in use at the same functions, at least, as it was in the past. It may have just changed ownerships. The Wareham Opera House, while not really hosting a lot of opera, does serve a lot for weddings and things now, but also for small concert series. Coming up, there's looks to be at least a couple of new premier concert avenues coming out.
It's always been there. Elliott Jewelers, they've always been in that building.
And then if any of you are trying to hide from the police by being part of this tour, up here on the left is where the FBI's office is, so just duck your head down as we take a left here.
It's the old phone company.
It is the old phone company. It's above the Wells Fargo building, and then yes, the FBI investigative services are located on the second floor of that building now. So they really are just here to do background checks and things on people, but if you are being hunted, just duck down low right now. Coming up here on the corners where we're at, so this, if you remember, this area up here used to be where we're coming into, we're on 4th Street, but 4th Street through the 3rd Street renovations that were down here used to have Steel and Pipe, a tire change company, a couple of second-hand stores and some other things.
This was the car lot here, and the other half of it was there.
Yeah, and the car lot that was right up over here. And so now this is actually, McCullough Development bought this up and turned this into high-rise apartments on this side over here. And then kind of did some more row house style apartment buildings, as well as we're getting into what's becoming the historical renovation areas for Osage Street, Leavenworth, and some of these down here. They're trying to really build up the houses. But inside of here is a new shopping center. Right where Steel and Pipe was is actually a Best Buy, a McAllister's Deli, a Texas or a Longhorn Steakhouse. And so when we come back through here, we'll actually drive through and take a quick look at some stores you can do some shopping at later if you're looking for some extra entertainment. So, but up here at the very end of the street is the roundabout section that was actually added in when they started changing out all of this to help with traffic patterns. They got rid of some stoplights and instead added this roundabout. As well as in the middle of it, they've got an iconic statue of one of the Manhattan Indians that was actually placed up there. And so as we go by, that'll give you a little bit of a view of that statue, as well as kind of show you how this area down here when we get ready to turn back through his ship. So we're about to see how amazing our bus driver is as she is taking us through the loops and turns of the new restaurant / Hy-Vee store areas back here.
So this is the 300 block of Morrow. That's what this road right here would be. Because Sharon used to live right there.
Yeah, so if you were curious, where Hy-Vee is, where this intersection we're hitting right now, this used to be the 300 block of Morrow. So this used to be all houses.
The blacksmith shop. The blacksmith shop was like right here on this corner.
So yeah, the blacksmith would have been right here.
And across the street was Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut was over here, and then right next to the blacksmith used to be a second-hand store as well, I believe.
That was next. There was one next to Aldi's.
Yeah.
I used to love that. Cheers Fashions. Okay.
Yeah.
This is Hy-Vee. This is our new grocery store. And the people that work here got stock in it.
Yeah, so this is Hy-Vee grocery store. It also has a great eatery in it, which kind of surprised me for a grocery store, but my wife and I like to come and eat here.
You guys are on 3rd Street.
Yeah, this is 3rd Street. So Steel and Pipe, we're going by what used to be the Pizza Hut. Steel and Pipe started somewhere right around in here and used to run down. But yeah, we are currently on what used to be 3rd Street. And this has all changed within the last 6 years, I believe. Maybe 8 years. Thank you. And also, just so you know, I try to give accurate information, but if at any point I say something that's inaccurate and you know, call me out on it. Otherwise, I can make all kinds of stuff up.
Yeah, they were doing this.
This is where the Apollo landing happened, over here on the right.
It was on the left.
Oh, it was on the left. I apologize. Thank you.
So they landed on the moon when you guys in '67. I remember that because I was in 1st grade and I was watching the lunar module.
As you can see, we've added a lot of what I call big box stores. These are stores that are more, that really Manhattan, the only reason these were added here is what happened was when the new biodefense facility was announced, not only did we have the growth from Fort Riley adding back in, but a lot of Manhattan's growth since then has come from people preparing for more movement into Manhattan, which that has caused more movement into town. It's basically a cyclical effect as you add these stores in and different amenities. It just continues growing to where they actually have talked through in the next 10 years they're planning on Manhattan growing at this point somewhere between 35 and 40,000 people, which seems crazy to me as well. Yes. But within that, the interesting thing is the university actually is not planning to grow as far as its actual student population within that time either. It is planning to grow slightly, but there is not a large push from the university to actually become and lose its actual smaller campus field. So they are looking to add more research capabilities, however, which we'll see as we go by there at the end of the tour. So as we come up here on the mall, we are definitely coming up on an area of town where you guys, I'm assuming this was houses for some of you.
McDougal's used to be right there at the pool hall, right here, and then the gas station.
So coming up here, you'll notice some things on the right. Some things that are still the same. Steve's Floral, I believe, has been here for a long time. So, but what was that? All right. And is it Hughes? Oh, Janelle Davis. All right. So we had a shop of one of your classmates. His shop used to be right over here. Her dad's shop. And as you can see, we've added some more restaurants down here as well. But a lot of the building structure has remained. What used to be here, where AJ's Pizzeria is up here on the corner?
Burger King.
It was a Burger King, that's right. What was it? Was it a Burger King when you all remember? First started as a Burger King? Yeah.
When I moved here, I could not close on buying my house because they were putting that mall in. They could not take out the number too.
Yeah. So here on the mall, as you can see over to the left, the mall has shifted a lot of stores inside of it, and a lot of our flagship stores have kind of shifted in and out, such as Sears. But what happened is when Sears left, we actually added an IMAX immersion theater.
It's right there. You can eat dinner.
And so you can sit in there in a leather recliner, eat your dinner, order your drinks, and watch a movie all at the same time.
And it's expensive. Wow.
It is expensive, and it is high caloric count if you're watching that at all, but it is pretty tasty. And it's kind of fun to be able to order food while you're watching the movie.
It seems to be pretty popular.
So yeah, where it says Ovation Cinema Grill, everything from there back is the movie theater, and the one IMAX theater that's inside of there is the full height of that building, and it does go down into the ground. So again, as we get up here onto Pierre, you'll notice up on the left, this whole area down here was part of Manhattan's bid to try and add in a little more ability to host conferences as well as have some tourism additions. If you look out your right, you'll also see the new Civics Plus building. Civics Plus, what Ward Morgan has done with that company has actually been pretty impressive, and took it from being a very small company to being one that's recognized nationally for sure. But Civics Plus, which is there, is one of the larger employers in the area. If you have an electric car and you're looking for a place to charge it, it is located on the back of that building. I believe is the only electric car charging port station in town. Then as we come up here on the left is the Flint Hills Discovery Center that was actually developed and designed. It has all the history of the area. They have what's called an immersion theater in there, to where it actually will snow on you while you're watching the history of the Flint Hills. It has wind that blows on you, heat that comes on your face when it does fire. And it has a full 180-degree theater in front of you. So when you're looking, your peripheral vision only can see what's in front of you. It's rather impressive. so if you do have some free time, I would highly recommend that as well. It is open 7 days a week. And then this is the Blue Earth Plaza. So during the holidays, this is where we do our tree lighting ceremony here inside of Manhattan now. And this whole area is lit up during the entire holiday season.
This right here is considered a city park now.
Yeah, and this is a city park. It does have a splash area in it, as well as a flowing river thing that, as you can see, kids in swimming suits coming up here. And then as we've added these hotels and conference centers, we've also added in the ability to host some actual conferences here in town with a little bit more population to the conference itself than what we had the space for in the past. So. And again, as you can see, we're adding in some more kind of smaller shops. We have an Artisan Wine and Spirits next to a Mimi's Cheese. So we are getting onto Fort Riley Boulevard now, which still serves as kind of the southern hub of the Manhattan area that takes you around from Tuttle Creek all the way over to Seth Child. If you guys do have a little bit of time, if we don't make it there today, we'll see how our time is doing. The Scenic Drive area and what they've done over there is actually pretty neat to see how they're adding in. There is some new smaller shop areas, some new rental areas, as well as a lot of new housing. And I remember Scenic Drive, driving on that with my dad in a grain truck, and it was scenic and a dirt road, and now it is not. So that's one of the most impressive changes I've seen, or drastic changes that I've seen actually in Manhattan. See, now we'll head up to Northview. Union Pacific does still travel by here, so. Did anybody in here ever dream of being a hobo when they grew up?
Yep, sure.
Dressed like them.
I used to dream about it. I actually saw one on the train 2 days ago. There was a boxcar with a guy hanging off the side dragging his feet, and it reminded me how much I actually miss thinking about that as a lifestyle sometimes. My wife seems to think I made better choices. Yeah, that's right. So over here on the left, you'll see things such as Texas Roadhouse, Chili's, again, the front face of the mall, as well as some of these other additional...
That's totally different.
yeah, maybe do that. if you can make the turn.
I can't do it.
And do you take tips at the end? Because this is awesome. You're doing well.
So that's the cool train that goes out to St. Mary's to the
Jeffrey Energy Center. That's cold.
So we're going to be heading over here on 24 East on the, which is the east side of Manhattan. There has been a lot of shifting and a lot of changing to this area, even here in the last couple of weeks. And so as we head this way, you'll see some of the development, but Manhattan's actually expanded its growth area. So Manhattan and Walnego, truly between the two areas, there is a lot of different housing developments, and one of the fastest housing development areas is actually here on the east side of the bridge on 24.
They knocked down Kmart.
Yeah.
Remember Kmart?
Kmart, if it was Kmart here?
It was right there where this
Yeah,
is. This
Kmart
just
isn't here
opened
anymore.
up.
If you look to the left, it's now Academy Sports.
Just opened up.
So this is one of the things that, as I said, in the last week has
That's gonna
changed.
shut down
This
big
whole
sporting
area has
goods.
shifted over here. And we're going to come up McCall Road, and you'll get to see some things. Like the McCall Pattern Factory is still open, but Quaker Oats has moved out. Well, General Mills has moved in Quaker Oats when it sold out, but it's changed how it's been. It's no longer an operational center as much as it is more of a distribution hub. So a lot of the stuff that used to be more in this industrial space that was over here has actually shifted some as well as we've added more residential.
Credit union, right?
That's where they opened, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's that party at K-State.
Yeah, at the credit union.
That's the opening.
I wrote the Chamber of Commerce checks to buy the 3 farms that this included.
The McCall Pattern Company is still open. They're not operating at as high a level as they used to be. And they're selling out a lot of their frontage along here to allow for some of these other businesses to come in.
It's starting to look like Wannabe.
Yeah. And so Kansas State Credit Union is having one of their opening events, inviting people in. They've got a lot of games out here for kids. If you want to go down an inflatable slide, we can stop. Otherwise, you'll notice the Menards, the K-State Superstore, and GTM Sportswear, which...
Look what on there, make sure your sound is up, because I'm thinking you don't sound like you're coming back there anymore. See it? There you go.
How high do you want it?
Just so they can hear you. Now talk. Just say testing.
Can everybody still
There
hear me?
it is.
Oh, I was
There it
told
is.
maybe I wasn't loud enough.
That's-
Some of you might have turned me down so you didn't have to hear me though. So
Now
here's
they-
where the new Orchlands is at. We've added a Dunkin' Donuts and Arby's, a performance. Walmart has actually turned into a Walmart Supercenter. And where it was at before, now a Staples, Staples is in the Walmart, and so is the Hobby Lobby. And the Dillons has changed into a Hastings bookstore and then left because Dillons built a new Dillons. Yeah, the VFW is here on the other side of the Walmart. They do have bingo. I have lost there repeatedly.
American Legion.
It's American Legion.
Oh yeah, American Legion, sorry.
Remember it used to have that big indent? See, McDougal's moved to right here, this one on the corner, and then a guy named Bob bought it, and he doesn't, it's gotten now, since they built all Denny's and all that stuff over there, he doesn't stay open very often now.
I don't really know what to say about it. They've tried to open it 3 or 4 times, I believe, and it has never actually opened. 20 years. Vista Drive-In. So my dad and I, when we'd get the grain truck, because we used to pick up all the grain that was swept off on the floor at Quaker Oats, we would stop here and get strawberry shakes on the way home. So, but Vista is still operating at full swing and doesn't seem to have any slowing down. It is still family owned.
The Streeter, they also have Baskin Robbins, and now they have Dunkin' Donuts.
Mm-hmm. Do you all actually have something after this tour? What time is your dinner?
6.
Okay. So,
I used to work over here.
yeah. So we are going to, our plan is, as of right now, we are heading up from here. We're going to go by Northview Elementary, and then we're going to go stop by Dr. Luttrell's house. It is a schoolhouse, yes. And so, as we hit there, we will be turning around to head back along Kimball, and we'll go past the university, and then we'll just go down, straight back down to the high school. On the left, Northview does now have a pool attached to it.
It's nice.
It has a giant slip and slide that goes down, as well as some pretty cool diving board areas.
Then it gets crowded.
wasn't even here until Sandy started third grade.
So here, they really redid
There wasn't a
Northview.
school here. Yeah,
There wasn't a
because
school.
all you
This
people were out
school
there.
was all kinds
The
of
school board didn't want to build
Yeah.
a school.
So Northview, as you can tell, has gone through a lot of updates and a lot of changes.
Flood district.
Nobody will build
That
that.
area will never be developed.
They were wrong
Now
about
they
that.
build a middle school out here.
Eisenhower Middle School.
Yeah, I'm gonna take you guys down Casement, then we're gonna go left on Marlette, where that used to all be fields. They're just developing it. They're putting all these 4-story apartments, I think.
They're 4-story.
Yeah, all this
so
stuff down there.
we're gonna turn and go to the next little section up here. As you can see, a lot of this area up here wasn't developed before, and since basically at this point, a lot of this sits within a floodplain. But as they shifted some things down here, they did allow for housing developments to happen. They changed some waterway areas. They added in parts of the spillway. I mean, so as they've made a lot of those shifted, it has allowed for development. In '93, however, it was proven that a lot of the stuff that they did didn't completely stop this portion of the area from having some floodwater. So,
They have no basements here.
yep. So there really are no basements on this section as we head this direction.
This was all a swamp.
Yeah. So as you look here to the left, all of this is new. I call this the Brook area because almost every street in here is named Brook,
It's
except for
because
Butterfield.
The farm up here with the greenhouse, it was the Brook farm. Dad passed away, the kids sold all the property except for the house where the mama lives. That's why everything's named Brook.
Thank you. That
Mom
helps.
still lives right there in the house.
I didn't know that. That helps a
GTO.
lot. That helps a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Because all of this was the Brook farm.
So yeah, everything up here on the left was part of the Brook farm, and so all the streets have now been named Brook. It's the Brookfield edition, the Brook everything edition.
Brook,
So
this, Brook, that.
yeah.
Just right here, just the house is left right
That's the
there.
Brooks farmhouse right there.
Yep. So that is the Brooks farmhouse there on the left, the greenhouse back there. And then as you'll see, again, we have some kind of newfangled looking silo apartments up here on the left. I believe is what they're called. Silo apartments, maybe not.
Yes, name of the road is Silo, but there was also
Yeah.
there was another farm right here.
And so that was the first kind of take on doing some nicer end apartments down here. And then as we turn on Marlette, what you're going to see is there's actually a company, they're out of Arkansas, it's called the Lindsay Apartment Group.
Housing.
Okay,
yeah.
you guys
Government
graduated in
affordable
'67, so what is it, the '52 flood, where this was Marlette that went all the way straight across the river, and the flood took out the bridge, and so they gave this side of Marlette to the farmer, and now the city commissioners are talking about opening this back up, because that goes straight to State Lake. If the road was there, you jump the river.
Yeah, so what she was saying, the city commission has actually talked about opening up Marlette, the road to continue to head east from here all the way back down to the State Lake River.
Yeah,
So,
they're putting the bridge back.
what's that?
They're talking about putting the
Oh
bridge
yeah,
back.
there's a lot of discussion about putting the bridge back in over there that was taken out in the '52 flood. So that's an interesting addition they may look at doing. And then as you look up here on the right, you're going to see what is one of the largest apartment complexes, short of what K-State is doing, to be built. And what I'll tell you to look for is, in order to not pay flood insurance, this company bought the entire section here. And if you look everywhere else around here, the road actually sits up higher than the rest of the area. They skimmed off the top and added 9 feet of soil, compacted soil, underneath these apartments to raise the entire complex. Yeah, and it came in order to keep it from being within the floodplain. These apartments were set to open on August 1. They will have 4 of them probably open by the end of September now, and the rest won't. But they've got just over 1,100 units, bedrooms will be added in there. 642 apartments, I believe. So that company is making a big push to pick up some people here within Manhattan.
So this right here on the left is our junior high now. We have 2 of them. This is Eisenhower.
And so over here on the left is Eisenhower Junior High. It's one of the newer buildings that's been added to our school system over here. So now we're going to be heading up and over onto the outside to the schoolhouse. Not house, but to the schoolhouse that's owned by Dr. Nicholas. So did you renovate this then?
Get up here on.
Yeah, let's see, you've got the microphone.
Oh, it's
Blue River
deteriorated only by doing what? They step out from
So we do our night driving when I take people, our trainees out. I hang right here. And we go.
My wife and I moved out here 14 years ago, and there's a one-room schoolhouse out here, the Cedar Creek Schoolhouse, built in 1885. Essentially what we did was, we saw the schoolhouse of 11 acres. We have horses, and we asked the Manhattan Roundup Club essentially if they would give us the property, which they did. And we paid them $800 for their lawyer's fee and for the incorporation dues they hadn't paid in 10 years. And they said they had $800 coincidentally in their checking account, clubhouse days, and they gave it to us, so we got 11 acres free. And I use it, well, we have horses there in the summertime when they're not at our place during the winter. And I have music camps, teach cello lessons and things like that. But the structure's from 1885. I know a man who went to school there in the 1930s. It ceased to be a school in 1937, and then the Manhattan Roundup Club used it as a clubhouse for 50-some years. You went to parades in the 1950s and 60s. The Manhattan Roundup Club was always the last one, riding their horses in their western gear. That's the same thing. It's a schoolhouse straight ahead. And it was in excellent condition except for pack rats that trashed the place. We restored it, raised a bunch of money, and so like I said, we have camps out here, and it's a beautiful area. And that green beyond it is part of the pasture that we own. Anyway, I had some parents of my Gold Orchestra members and kids help clean this place up. It was absolutely filthy, and also cut down probably 3 or 4 acres of trees. Until 8 years or so ago, the trees came right down to the back of the schoolhouse, the same thickness that you see on the other side of the wall. The people who live here had forgotten all about that schoolyard wall that existed because it was covered up by the woods.
Oh, it goes all the way around.
Yeah, and then north of the arena, there's a great big arena, almost as big as a football field. And the Roundup Club would use that for rodeos, family weekends.
I won't clear those.
And they had a grandstand there. Those are our 3 horses that you see. And they spend about 100 days over here in the summer. But I spent countless hours cleaning up that area. So.
I helped plant that in the broom grass.
Oh, I love your house.
So up here on the right is where David Luttrell lives at. So if you want to come by later and have dinner, I believe it's here on your front yard. So.
I helped unload a lot of hay in that thing too.
In the June, we buy it from the woman who owns the land.
So it's like you serve fresh chicken.
Yeah, we have this way.
18 chickens.
Yeah,
It goes across the eggs.
Yeah, well, the Highway 13.
It's awesome.
Our house, the original structure dates to 1910. There used to be a lot more limestone houses around here, long gone now. There were obviously enough families around to have kids to go to that schoolhouse between 1885 and 1937. And one of the men is still alive, we just passed his house. He went there during the Depression when people were desperately poor. He was telling me one time about one kid for his lunch would bring lard sandwiches. Bread spread with lard, substitute for butter, because they were so poor. This is the Cedar Creek Cemetery up here.
That's what the kids call them.
And yes, both of these bridges get flooded once in a while when we have 3 or 4 inch rains. You can't get through.
So the stone house back there, the Wilson house, that's who you're talking about, these two guys?
No, he lived in every house up and down here.
Oh, okay.
And he and his father used to.
But yeah, no. It's all
Raining again?
Yeah.
Still raining.
It must be moving away from us at least then. Yeah, I'll definitely get a hold of you to come see that.
See, I need to see up on top.
There's a great big hill by the row of mailboxes that.
So as we cross over the spillway, you will notice A couple of things that are up here. One would be in '93 when they actually opened these gates. The amount of pressure and flood that came out on the left-hand side, if you see all it's not quite as impressive as it was in '93, but you could actually come out here and do some repelling and things off of the crevices that were left when the flood came through here. And so if you're looking for some, so the way the spillway works, when the water comes up to the height of the dam to where it crosses over to this area, if it does look like the dam may have some issues, then the spillway can open up so that it keeps the dam from collapsing and making it all the way to Lawrence in just under 12 minutes is what I've been told for the water. So, but when you look out here, the water was actually up. I believe when we go by, you'll be able to see a marker on the side of the tubes tower that's up here. But the water was within, I believe it was 6 feet of cresting over the dam when they actually opened the spillway. And so what I tell people is, if you imagine that, you think about, okay, well, that's 6 feet up here. But you have to imagine the water for that height, for the entire width of the river, the entire length of the river. It wasn't just like the water suddenly comes up higher here, but that's how much water was in the river. And so they were closing bridges north of here because the water was on bridges that had never seen water anywhere near them, was having water getting close to cresting the top. And it was just an immense amount of pressure and amount of water when they opened up that spillway.
Problem also is down Missouri and Iowa and all that.
Yeah, they held it back because of Mississippi was flooded.
Yeah, it wasn't just us. Everything north of us had to have that water released as well. And so if you look down here on the left, you'll see the Tuttle Creek State Park area. This area has actually shifted and changed a lot over the years, and it's now not an open space to just drive through like it used to be. They've turned more of it into camping and RV grounds. Part of that due to the country stampede. So if you all want to come back here in a few weeks and see mass chaos, up to 105,000 people will be down in that park area all at once, including going to beer gardens and sleeping in tents for 3 days. So if that sounds like a enjoyable time to you, which I'm just kidding, it actually is kind of fun. You don't have to partake in all of those things. Yeah, so here are the tubes over on the left. They actually should still be open, yet they're still releasing water, as we do have a higher level than normal. Yeah. So over on 36 is where the water was on that tower there to your right. No, I wouldn't go up Manhattan. I'd go past the football stadium. The business center and stuff on K-State campus is probably, I could give K-State tours forever, so it's probably easier to go by. So as we do go towards NBAF, as we talked about, National Bio and Agricultural Defense Facility, it is a $1.6 billion undertaking by the U.S. government that Manhattan was able to bid out and get. And it actually comes with a lot of feelings one way or the other on it, because they did move a biodefense facility that deals with such great things as hoof and mouth and other bio diseases to the central portion of an agricultural region off of an island. So typically there's a reason why you put military things and stuff like that on an island. So putting them in the middle of Kansas struck a little people wrong. So the neat things about NBAF, however, are that they are building it in such a way that I actually like that it's next to a beef research unit, because they are testing those cattle all the time. If something were to happen, it'd be good to know now. And so as we come up here, you'll see we're getting a new equine center, and when you look to the left, you're going to see the actual cranes that are putting in NBAF. And as we go around this corner, as you look down, you'll see this tall structure here on the north side of it. What most people think about it when they see it, they're like, oh look, it's NBAF. Actually, that's just the energy center that will be operating this structure. That gray building, all that does is bring in power. So they have turbines in there that you can drive an F-150 into. The physical structure is now what's coming up above ground there. The majority of the things that will happen with NBAF, much like our other facilities here on campus, actually happen below ground. They'll happen with ventilation tubes and other things that will keep any of that from truly being dispersed.
So you want me to turn around in the stadium parking lot?
Yeah, when we get up there, go on the east side of it, if you would.
Okay.
New K-State Foundation building, and this is also kind of the central hub, because when we get up there, I'll talk just briefly. So the north part of K-State, Kimball Avenue, which we're on right now, will actually be 6 lanes within the next 2 years. I was lucky enough to help figure out how to design that mass, and it's going to have 2 stoplights on it as well. But the big portion of that is because of what we're getting ready to come up on. For those of you who haven't been here in a while, I'm guessing the football stadium will look different. On the right-hand side is the Kansas Wheat Innovation Center and our grain commissions. This whole top part up here is actually part of our agricultural research section. And so K-State is moving north on a lot of its projects. And the football stadium here, the northern portion of this, which is part of the veneer addition and the money that was added in for that, as well as the western side, which was blown up, imploded actually, just a few years ago, is, so if you can turn it here, that'd be perfect, is all part of the newer addition to the football stadium. There are a few more additions left to getting the football stadium put completely to where they want it, just with the end zones and with the corners. The Ice family, who are a great just donor family for the university, donated a new Jumbotron TV screen here for the east side, and then actually on the south side of this building, sorry, on the north side, on the south side of this building is actually a new basketball training facility that was also donated by, the money for it was donated by Carl and Mary Ice. So we've been lucky enough that a lot of our facilities, specifically for athletics and for the rest of the university, honestly, are privately funded. And so when you look at athletics actually is part of an auxiliary service. So they don't get actual money from the university. They pay money into the university to be part of it.
The doors are open.
Well, I mean, if people wanted to stop, the doors are open. We could walk through them.
Anybody want to see the inside of that stadium? Nope.
But if not, we can continue on to get back. Yeah. And so here is the Bramlage basketball arena that's here. This is also the home of the athletics offices.
I'm going this way.
Yeah, so it's
I was
good.
looking at the width of that turn.
Yeah. And so yes, this whole athletic complex that's up here is actually part of K-State, but it's part of K-State through an auxiliary. They actually pay money to the university to be here. And it does operate, university athletics anymore does operate a lot more like a business than it does a part of a university, so that does make some sense. But as you can see from the additions that have put here, the athletics is trying to be a premier force, basically not just within the Big 12, but within the NCAA, and to bring in money for the university and for Manhattan. K-State football brings in a lot of money to this town. And so coming up here on the right, you'll see a statue of Coach Bill Snyder. What's that?
Who made Manhattan what it is today.
Who made Manhattan what it is today. By changing what our football team did, he changed this entire town. A couple of the items that are different in Manhattan that I would suggest seeing on your own would be the Colbert Hills Golf Course. It is a professional grade golf course that was added back in, I believe, 1999 was when they started it, somewhere around there. And it's part of the whole golf course area that's up there that also goes down Scenic Drive and adds in a lot of the newer development areas for housing, as well as the intersection of Scenic Drive and Anderson is going to be the home of a new shopping / apartment complex, etc. area. So, but yeah, as we head back over here towards Imbath, you'll also notice on the south side of the road, did anybody in here go to K-State?
Yeah.
A lot of you?
Only a few.
Only a few of you. Did any of you live in the Jardine Apartments? No? Okay, yeah, I mean, it's easiest just take me out. So the Jardine Apartments, that's actually part of K-State, is one of the largest, in fact, I believe it is the largest state-bonded contract in Kansas history. Again, housing and dining services for the university is also part of an auxiliary. They actually pay money to the university to be part of it. They don't actually take money from it. It's all run by their rental rates only. So it's a pretty impressive thing. You can see the top of the tower if you look to the right, over top of the new rec complex. Yeah.
Are you going down Denison?
We are planning to, yes.
I thought Denison was closed at Claflin.
It is closed in Claflin.
Closed this morning.
Okay.
Still is, yeah.
Oh, yep. So you will go straight then.
Yeah, we can go through
I'll take
Jardine.
Well, we could, and then take the side streets down.
I'll just take Manhattan.
Yeah, we can just take Manhattan down. Good call on that. I had forgot they closed Claflin down. Yeah.
right.
So if you look to the right, you will see the top of the nuclear reactor tower for the university, if for those of you who didn't remember that was there. We do have a 4-chamber nuclear reactor purely for testing purposes that are part of the university. But the university itself, if you have a chance to drive around it, has changed. In August, Housing and Dining opened up a new $75 million residence hall and dining facility. We've got InBath, which is right here. And then at the next intersection, we turn to go down Manhattan, you'll see actually the new home of the Kansas Department of Agriculture. We moved it out of Topeka, actually moved here 2 years ago to be closer to InBath, which is also part of what they're still, part of this whole driving force for Manhattan to be growing.
Equestrian Center.
Yeah, over on the left is the new Equestrian Center. And then over on the left is also Meadowlark Hills, which has been here for a while, has actually been growing exponentially as well.
It's like living on a cruise ship.
Yeah, it's living on a cruise ship. There are portions of it that actually are like living on a cruise ship. I've visited several friends who enjoy the amenities there. So, but as we turn to go down Manhattan Hill, Manhattan has actually has grown some. The lanes have expanded out here, and they're going to expand out the rest of the way through town.
And American Institute of Baking down here.
Yeah, we're going to go right by it.
Yeah, so we'll go by AIB.
And Georgia Baking.
If you look here to the right, these cranes have been here from the get-go and they will not be leaving for a long time.
Been years ago.
And it's kind of the first construction that went on here is the platforms for these cranes actually to be bolted to the ground, which was an impressive sight of its own. But you can see this whole research area. The move here is that this will actually be the northern entrance into K-State. So over the next 15 years, part of the push for the university will be that this whole section here on the north side will be part of the new North Campus Research Extension. And so what they're looking at is they're trying to figure out a way to actually get, and those are your college youth that work there. That's
There's AIB on the
yeah, and AIB is over here on the left, American Institute of Baking. They've actually done some renovations, some additions of their own, as they've been changing kind of how they do their coursework there.
Before 9/11, they used to donate every Friday all their baked goods to us bus drivers. But since 9/11, they're not allowed to anymore so they don't poison us.
Yep. It's true. They can't
That's
donate.
so
They can't
stupid.
donate any of it now.
They've changed the rules. Even the kids in birthday, like your little girl has a birthday at school, you cannot make cupcakes. You have to buy them. They have to be in a package.
Yep. Everything has to be sealed
It's
up
just
now.
crazy nuts.
You're supposed to buy it as dog bread.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And then you just hand. Yeah. That's what.
And the bombing fluid.
Yep. So over here on the so K-State campus has also been going, as I said, was going through a lot of changes. They are pushing to have the actual main campus be more of a walking campus. So Mid-Campus Drive, which used to go through the middle of K-State, is actually closed down and is now a walking lane. And they will be continuing that. Claflin Road, which goes through campus, was initially set to be shut down at the same time. But at this point is actually remaining open for now as they're trying to debate on the ability for the most part, emergency personnel to have entrance and egress. So here to the right is the new business building is what we're coming upon. They did take out a lot of the grass area where we used to play Frisbee and have put in a new business, state-of-the-art business facility. It's pretty impressive. I did a catering event here. I do barbecue catering too. My wife says I shouldn't do everything that I do, but this last week, but you can see the stock market ticker as you go through here. The majority, all of this money, actually though, came from private money. It was not done, any of it with student fees. So, as you can see, that's a theme for the university. And up here on the left, you'll see our new Bluemont Hotel. And so we're going to do a quick jaunt through Aggieville, down the side next to Johnny Caw, and then we're cutting over to the high school, and you'll be done with me so you can quit listening to my voice. And for those of you who have either put in earplugs or turned off any hearing devices, that will be the time you can remove them or turn them back on. So now, does everybody remember Varney's? Yeah, so Varney's has been bought out and was transferred over now to just within the last 2 years, and is now a Rally House campus clothing. Now, the Varney family does still own part of this, as do the Levines. They still own part of the facilities up here.
Varney's bought the theater, and they bought the theater first.
Yeah, and that's true. Varney's bought the theater and moved over here because it used to be down, and this used to be the Dollar Theater So the theater and all that have moved out, and as you can see, Aggieville itself has actually been developing. And here on the left, the dusty bookshelf on the corner, which I'm guessing was not the dusty bookshelf back then, actually burned down here. It was the it was the campus bookstore at that point, and so it actually burned down recently. Oh, that's kind of cool. I didn't notice that.
Go straight or left?
Go left here, yeah.
I got it.
And so we're going to do a quick jaunt through Aggieville. Just again, we're testing our bus driver's ability to navigate turns and walkers.
The street's only half as wide as it used to be.
Yeah, and as you notice, so Aggieville used to be two ways, and
But you used to park too on
yeah,
both sides. Now
and now it's a one-way trip only. So they it's only one lane down the middle.
In Dusty's Last Chance, finally, they're gone.
Yeah, and so
That's
Last
sad.
Chance has sold out. It is no longer here as well. In fact, a lot of the stores that were here, I don't even know if it was Pyramid Pizza here or was it something
Yes,
else
if
before
you're
you
the
guys.
DC right on the left
Yeah.
side.
So I mean, everything down here is it probably did back then. Everything just changes in and changes out, but the actual structures remain for the most part close to the same.
Everybody's put in windows so that they can take the glass out.
Yeah.
They can patio out of it. And I don't know what's blocked.
And right here used to be Brothers, and this was a two-story dance hall, burnt down 19 years ago, and upstairs it had one of those bouncing dance floors. That burned down, like it was like my first date with my husband, it burned down.
Must have been a hot day.
We were in it then.
And as you can see, that we're coming up on Johnny Caw, who dug these valleys with his scythe. And you can see the splash park is in full operation out here, and the new playground area that went in for the kids. And what's and so what's happening
I like
is
it better where it is.
well, but they can't carry as much inventory. So honestly, I don't know how much longer they're going to last out there. What they're turning into is they're turning into a hub for people to pick up items they buy online, and that Sears doesn't get any of the money from what people buy online.
I was talking about Courthouse and Hills.
I like it better where they are, yeah. But I mean, the mall can't keep their flagships. I mean, Dillard's is staying there, JCPenney's, but if you look at all of those flagships, like JCPenney's corporate is having major issues. So they're closing them down all around the U.S. Ours is going to stay open. I had actually talked with them about it here a couple of weeks ago. But it's the same, same story with a lot of the flagships. Dillard's isn't having much, it shouldn't be having much issues, but when you look at Macy's having major issues now. It's closing down. So a lot of the stores that just depend on people being physically in their stores for their items are just struggling because people don't go to the mall, which is why the IMAX edition actually is what might save them.
I have a feeling that a lot of young people don't go hang out malls for entertainment like they
No,
used to.
they sit on their phones somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, still.
So, yeah, but that's
These kids that hang out at the mall, but this much anymore.
yeah, and so I think on a part of the stuff I
I understand even the
17th Street
is not the
and
activity,
Points.
fun activity that used to be.
No.
The key thing to do when you have
Yeah.
shopping at the mall, window shopping. It's
Nope.
not-
It's just not what people want. They don't. I mean, they want to go onto Amazon, order it in about 2 seconds, or
Yeah.
order it from something having shipped to their door, and that's the hard part. Is there for things like stores like Walmart and all those, and even Sears and JCPenney. Sears' biggest issue is they never went over to being an online store until too late. But all these other, they get great business as a corporation. But what happens is the smaller actual brick and mortar where people have to physically come in don't get the options to stay open. And so for things like the mall, that's just horrible. I mean, you don't get your advertising dollars because people aren't buying the small little spaces in it as much. You get all your money out of the holiday season, and then that's about. But I mean, people don't even really go to the Easter bunny and stuff. I mean, it's just some malls kind of
Kimball Castle.
like what Kansas City has, which people don't like to be inside the structure. They want an outside venue where they can eat outside and have.
Plus the heating and cooling costs are a huge amount of space.
Oh yeah, their overhead is massive.
Right.
It's-
So I was wondering whether we might see this mall torn down eventually.
The problem is, Yeah, the actual structure and the ability to go in. I mean,
Surprised they got that for it.
we have enough. We're not big enough to where there's enough spaces people can buy. So where tearing it down doesn't make much sense because you can buy a space for cheaper than you could buy that, even if it went into bankruptcy. That's why you see in some towns that aren't big enough to get anything much more, their malls will just sit there and they'll become these ghost towns. Yeah.
Deadmall.com.